Every new Pokemon generation introduces some kind of power creep. In Generation 5, we have Ferrothorn, Landorus, and a few other Pokemon. In Generation 6, outside of Mega Evolutions, we have Aegislash. Generation 7 brings us Ultra Beast, Toxapex, Tapu Lele, Tapu Koko, a lot of wild stuff going on there. And then, for Generation 8, we have man's misuse of a Philosopher's Stone, Dracovish. What are you? I guess that doesn't even matter because this thing has some of the highest damage we have ever seen in Pokemon, because Game Freak decided that this signature move was an okay idea. Power doubles if the user moves first. So if you're faster than the opponent, this now becomes a 170 base power move for free, and that means you're attacking first, so it's not like you have to take damage. You know, there are some analogs where we've seen moves where if something happens, power doubles. Avalanche, 60, but you have to get hit, and then it turns into 120. Revenge, 60, but you have to get hit, then it turns into 120. And that's all you get out of it. So this is more damage, and Game Freak was like, you know what, it's balanced. It's got that 75 speed. So that's okay, right? And yeah, in theory it sounds okay until you add the ability Strong Jaw, because Fishious Rend stacks with Strong Jaw. So we have a 170 base power move, getting stab, and then another 50% on top of it as long as you outspeed the opponent. Well, that only leads to the only way this Pokemon can be played outside of a Trick Room, Choice Scarf. Jolly Nature, max speed, max attack, Choice Scarf, and then literally none of your other options matter. Earthquake, well, a super effective non-stab hit is only 200 base power. 200 base power, that's, nah. We ain't using that trash. Outrage, one of the strongest dragon-type moves. Well, it doesn't get strong jaw boosting, so no reason to use that. Psychic Fangs? Strong jaw, right? Well, even a super effective hit with Psychic Fangs. Why? So, even in, like, some wacky situations, you got nothing on this. Like, unless Fishious Rend is resisted and then one of these other moves is a super effective hit, you're just going to spam the Fishious Rend and then hope you're one-shotting in the neutral, and that's all that Dracovish is good for. So now let's go and take a look at what this Pokemon does offensively and defensively. So, Water Dragon. Actually a really, really good typing because you're only weak to Dragon and Fairy. Dragon, not super common, especially in the Galar decks, and Fairy, you will see quite a bit of it, but there's no fast fairy type Pokemon that are just going to instantly be like, hey, Dracovish, I'm going to kill you. Now, that just doesn't happen. So that's something. Yeah, resistances don't really matter, just a ton of neutral hits, and this Pokemon can be kind of difficult to blow up neutrally because it does have a good amount of stats. And we're going to get to those right after we talk about the offenses. So, offensively, not really too much. Dragon hurts Dragon, and then Water, if you're already KOing things in neutral, so if you're hitting a super effective fire, ground, or rock type Pokemon, I'm pretty sure that Pokemon gets deleted from your game. That's how much damage that Dracovish does. So now we can go pull this stuff off and look at it. I mean, 90 hit points, 100 defense. That's at least 2 at KO against a lot of sweepers, and then same even 90, 80. It's going to be tough to one-shot. And that's where we get into problems with this Pokemon. But I also believe that knowledge is power, so now that you have this information, Dracovish is just not that great of a Pokemon. It's really good for, like, I think it's one of the best pub stompers in the game. Like, if you're going up against a noob that doesn't really know what's going on, and they don't have, like, a lot of fast Pokemon, or they don't know how to deal with something like this, you just get to run them over with Fishious Rend until you win. But once you know what this thing wants to do, it's actually pretty easy to play around, especially because of the Dynamax phenomenon. So, with Dynamax, I learned recently, choice items don't work with it. So Dracovish can't Dynamax unless it wants to lose a lot of damage, because then it's not getting any ability, then it's not even going to have as much base power as Fishious Rend, and while it does have the freedom to move around and use moves, it's now just a 75 speed Pokemon with no defensive investment. Pokemon's that slow, it's usually going to be a tank. This thing isn't going to tank. Now it's going to get like a bonus health and stuff, but I don't really see many situations where actually Dynamaxing is going to do anything for this Pokemon, which means it's also very abusable by opponents' Dynamax Pokemon. That if you Dynamax against a Dracovish, you just search for that super effective hit, and then you just get to beat it, because you're going to survive the Fishious Rend, and that means if you have the air move, so yeah, if you can just use the Windstorm, now you're faster than it, and now Fishious Rend does less damage. So if you get any speed over this Pokemon, it falls apart really quickly. Like, you might have to give up a Pokemon. You knock out an opponent's Pokemon, Dracovish comes in, it knocks you out, now you just go into a sweeper, your own Scarf Pokemon, your Dynamax, Wind Strike Pokemon or something like that, and then Dracovish kind of doesn't really exist as a Pokemon anymore. How simple is it to take out Dracovish? Excelgor. You bring in Final Gambit Excelgor, and that's it. So, I think that kind of brings us to the other things we need to talk about when it comes to Dracovish, because since this is the only thing it can do, we just need to look at it from a damage calculation standpoint, as well as getting those speed numbers in there. So at level 50, which is going to be the standard competitive format, we have 208 speed with a Choice Scarf. Now, for those of you that were paying attention, Excelgor has a 216 speed at level 50, so what the 75 speed means with the Scarf is that Pokemon 137 base speed or lower are getting outsped. So that means Barraskewda is going to be outsped, but then not the legendaries, and then the few Pokemon that are above it. So let's go and change this over to speed stuff. Excelgor, Dragapult, Zacian, Zamazenta, Ninjask. That's going to be it, except for other Scarf Pokemon, but also there's Pokemon like Barraskewda that play heavily into rain, and with the Dynamax phenomenon, you Dynamax, use a water move, and now you get Swift Swim, so a very slow Swift Swim Pokemon is going to be able to overrun and then kind of invalidate what Dracovish is or wants to do, because then it's just a 90 attack, non-invested, non-boosted Pokemon that can't really do anything. A 90 attack, uninvested Earthquake from a slow Pokemon is going to be useless. And after it pops you once with that Fishious Rend, it's either going to have to switch out, which you can use for your advantage, or you can just kind of overrun it. And then you know it's going to be coming back in, and you know it's going to be wanting to do the same things. But I did want to get some damage analogs really quick, because, like I said, this is unlike any other damage we've seen in the game for instant startup. We have to start getting into the insanity that were Ultra Beasts back in Generation 7 to kind of figure out what's going on here. So a Pheromosa with Choice Band is the only thing I could find that, like, instantly out-damages in just a very similar way. That we have Choice Band instead of Choice Scarf, because we already have such an insanely high speed, max attack with a high jump kick. That's going to be enough to do it. And that's kind of it. So yeah, like, that's the level of one-shot we're dealing with the Dracovish. I was also trying to think about, like, other cheese sets, because this is a bit more setup that's not just, like, Scarf and then win, but you can have an Adamant Lucario if you go Endure Salac Berry. Well, now you're still going to be faster than the Dracovish, and then you're going to have comparative damage on the 1 hit point reversal. I'm using Silvally as a defending Pokemon because the 95s across the board is a good way of just kind of like registering, hey, if you can neutrally one-shot Silvally, you're neutrally KOing most sweeper Pokemon, and you are very, very strong. So, a couple things to note right there. I was thinking about some other ones. Darmanitan with that Sheer Force, Choice Scarf, Flare Blitz. It's close. So Darmanitan, like, pretty much nukes any other Pokemon as efficiently as Dracovish, but it does have a timer with that recoil damage. However, that means you're getting, like, 3 KOs with the Darmanitan in the same way that you'd probably get, like, 3 KOs with the Dracovish, and in 3v3 Battle Spot format, that kind of shows the danger of this Pokemon. That in 6v6, I feel Dracovish is much worse, but in 3v3s, you know, you can just kind of, like, slap it on your team, and the opponent might be scared of it. And then, like, that's when you just start getting some weird meta plays and mind games and stuff like that. Like, you have Dracovish as your 6, you don't bring it as one of your 3, but then they're forced to bring, like, a Toxapex or a Ferrothorn or something. Comparing the Dracovish to the Garchomp, though, Garchomp actually looks really pitiful damage-wise. Like, you're thinking, like, oh yeah, the Outrage Garchomp, that's the classic big damage. Even though this is Jolly, if we throw it to Adamant, it's not going to change anything, and we don't have the speed to go out of the Choice Scarf or something. But, I mean, that's the Garchomp. That's the kind of speed and stuff we were looking at, but there's no Garchomp in the game, and even then, like, weird stuff. I always thought Garchomp was overrated. I do think that Dracovish is overrated. Just kind of like showing all kinds of weird stuff that's going on. Also, if you respond with a Mimikyu, the KO against Dracovish is pretty free. Play rough. Just standard Mimikyu with the Life Orb, Adamant, Disguise. Boom, you run it over. GG, just like that, because the Disguise is going to take the hit for you. So it just kind of shows, like, that's the state of Dracovish's tankiness. That if it isn't a super effective hit, yeah, it's 2-hit KO. Outside of that, you know, super effective hits are just going to take it out. And now just kind of looking at some other things like the Gyarados matchup, because that gets weird. So you take the Fishious Rend, and then Gyarados just Dynamaxes into the Airstream, and then now you're useless. Gyarados is going to get free stats, it's going to be able to 2-hit KO you, now you're not fast anymore, so you have to switch out, but switching out against that Gyarados is bad. It's not just going to get even more Airstream, more freeness, it KOs something, gets the Moxie. So Gyarados, once again, like, yeah, you just bring in Pokemon against the Dracovish to exploit it, and depending on the setup or depending on the response that you have, you get to turn it into a reverse sweep. So Gyarados, that's a pretty big reverse sweep against the Dracovish, and now we have like the offensive one set up here. We can just kind of look at the other tank responses. Vaporeon effectively makes this Pokemon not exist. I mean, if it's an Acid Armor Vaporeon, even more so. Water Absorb just instantly ends the Fishious Rend right there, so maybe that's a bad example, but it also shows like, yeah, there are ways to bring really good responses to the Vaporeon, and even then, like, you can switch in, tank an Outrage, set up a Wish, Protect, and now you're ahead on damage until, like, say that, you know, say you think they're going to Fishious Rend, they predict you on an Outrage, even if they get a prediction against you with a bulky Water-type Pokemon like the Vaporeon, doesn't really mean anything. And also, I guess in a weird way, if you can predict the Scarf and you have, like, Singles Trick Room, it becomes completely useless for the entire duration of that Trick Room. So there's some weird stuff going on over there. Let's look at Ferrothorn, just, like, straight stats right here. I mean, wow. I didn't even expect it to be that hard. Like, this isn't even full defensive invested on the Ferrothorn. And it's not even two-shotting. So, I mean, this is Leech Seed, Protect, gain a lot of health back, and you can eventually just kind of deal with it that way. Also, it's crashing into your Iron Barb, so it's going to be taking extra damage that way. And, yeah, if you had any bit more, like, defensive investment, it just kind of gets worse and worse for that Pokemon. So, Ferrothorn's a good one. And then got my boy Toxapex, which just feels like one of the best Pokemon in Generation 8. So yeah, like I said, you can tank this bad boy out and you can deal with it, and it has that massive drawback of not being able to Dynamax. So yeah, the Pokemon's got some shenanigans behind it, but I think it's going to get a lot scarier in the future because Sandrush is not available. But when it does become available, you can really set this up in singles, because, okay, you just have a Pokemon use Max Rockfall as your Dynamax, that's going to set up Sandstorm, and then you can Life Orb with the Sand Rush and effectively have the same damage as a Strong Jaw on the Fishious Rend, but just being, like, good overall with more speed, harder to outspeed, and fun stuff like that. Now you can still be hard countered by like Storm Drain and Water Absorb and stuff. That also brings me to doubles. So once again, Dracovish sounds like a very terrifying Pokemon in double battles, especially like if you just give it a choice. No, you can't give it a choice band Trick Room, because first turn you have to protect, or else you're just going to straight up die. And I think it's also going to be way too predictable. So there's like going to be some 10th degree mind games, because you could either just like double focus the Trick Room Pokemon, make sure it goes away, but if that's going to be happening, if Dracovish doesn't protect that turn, it's a massive risk, but that Fishious Rend can turn into a KO. So Life Orb, Protect, so you just like get rid, it doesn't really matter which one you get rid of. Maybe the Earthquake, but unless you don't want to hurt your allied Pokemon, maybe the Psychic Fangs. Fairy-type Pokemon can just switch in, so no, do something like this. We still have some coverage that we can like look into. Does get Crunch. Super Fang doesn't even matter with this Pokemon's damage, and then that's what we're looking at. So it's got some interesting stuff behind it. The Iron Head for the fairies, but at the end of the day, like I talked about earlier, it doesn't matter how much damage you're doing. The Fishious Rend is just going to keep stopping out all of the options that are possible. However, looking at what resists us offensively, I guess it is like a good idea to mention the Ice Fang. I just didn't want to immediately rush to it because Ice Fang isn't a 100% need in this generation. There's no Dragonite, there's no Garchomp. You don't need to just kind of like tech in some kind of ice. There's no hidden power even. So it's not like, okay, 4-time ice fishing is what we're doing anymore. Nah, but the Ice Fang with the Strong Jaw is pretty good. So that's also another option that you can have for the double battles. And I'm just thinking like Oranguru Instruct. Set up the Trick Room, Fishious Rend, 2-hit KO on, there's like 2 KOs on that turn because you can do stuff like that. So there's a lot of weird things that can happen. Trick Room's gonna be strong. Storm Drain and doubles could be common enough to just kind of draw in that hit and make it not matter anymore. So here's how I feel about Dracovish. It's always going to be relevant. I think that's a good way of putting it. That if used in the wrong scenario, it's exploitable, it's just bad, and it's going to cost you games. If used when the opponent isn't expecting it, then it can actually win you a lot of games and be pretty good in the end. But currently, I think it's a flavor of the month. Flavor of the month means people are going to hard respond to it and just kind of stuff it out, and then it's going to get forgotten. And when it's forgotten is when Dracovish is going to be terrifying. So that's kind of thing. Get yourself a Dracovish, you know, go and like just get the fossils, do a nature mint, and then get some max IVs on it through hyper training or something, because you can't breed the fossil Pokemon, and you just kind of have to roll for the guaranteed 3 IVs, so it's not really that fantastic of a Pokemon to make competitively, but I think it is worth the bottle caps, just to kind of have it there, and then when you think people haven't seen Dracovish in long enough, pull it out for a couple of games. win with it. If like, you know, if Ferrothorn or Toxapex doesn't become like the immediate meta response or something like that, or Gyarados drops off, like if the things that stop this Pokemon go away for even a half second, bring it out and remind the world of what Dracovish is, and then it's going to get stuffed out again, then it has to like go into hiding. So it's going to be a weird Pokemon like that, and I think that's going to be a pretty fun thing about it, but I just want to explain what it is. There's no like hidden mystery, there's no like ridiculousness about this Pokemon that can't be explained. It is what it is. I think it's overhyped. So if you guys enjoy the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.